Hi everyone, we are Samudra. We are AI and robotics to scale seaweed farming. I'm Joyeeta, I'm the CEO and co-founder.
I'm Alex, I'm CTO and co-founder.
And this is our third co-founder, Neera. And she can't speak yet, but she's very intelligent, probably a bit more than both of us, as you'll find out pretty quickly. And we're going to tell you why that's important for the climate crisis. Did you know that seaweed captures a lot of carbon? Actually, it captures potentially a lot more carbon than even tropical forests, sometimes 20 to even 50 times more in terms of pure capture. What that basically means is you now have a biological, nature-based solution that can scale to solve the climate crisis. Because if we can grow 14,000 square kilometers of seaweed, it can, in theory, be equivalent to taking out 10 megatons of CO2 out of the atmosphere. Well, that's great. We've then solved the climate challenge. We can all just go home. It's done. And this is the best news that the investors here might like to see. This is also very lucrative. We aren't just saving the planet, we can also make you wealthier, if you want to know that. Basically, seaweed is sitting on top of an exploding market. 30 billion is just food products alone. This does not even include alginates, biofertilizers, meat substitute burgers, and a ton of other things and biomaterials that seaweed can produce. And I'm not even getting into the blue carbon credit market, which is worth trillions, and we'll talk about that shortly. So great, now we have a very scalable solution for the nature and a very scalable solution for the economy. What are we waiting for? Everyone here become seaweed farmers, but not really. Why? There is a big problem here. So in this company, I'm usually the problem person. He's the solution. So I'm going to tell you the biggest problem, and he's going to take over the solution. The problem here is sea farming is where land farming was 150 years ago. Well, none of us were alive, but think about it. When you did not have combine harvesters, tractors, or fertilizers, what was limiting the scale of the farm? It was literally a person in a bullock cart trying to do as much as they can. And that's why the farms were small. We exploded into agricultural revolution when we moved into automation. And that's where sea farming is today. It's a relatively new industry in some parts of the world, not in Asia, I guess. And it's not automated at all. So we are trying to introduce automation because 70 to 80% of the costs of sea farming are actually manual costs. So pretty clear what the solution should be.
Yeah, so to a team of engineers, obviously the solution will be robotics. So we're developing equipment that will go in, monitor 24/7 the seaweed farm for growing conditions, have cameras for observing the seaweed itself. But with all of that data, you then need to interpret it. So on top of the robotic solution, we'll have an AI platform that'll give you essentially a scientist in your pocket who will take that data, tell you give you your insights, tell you what to do with your farm going forward, and help you scale that farm from a couple hectares to potentially even a few square kilometers with relatively similar labor costs. So far, Neera's been on a bit of a grand tour of the UK, all the way from Cornwall up to Scotland and across to Norfolk, testing in all the different conditions, different seaweed farms, different seaweeds, learning a lot as we go, still lots of iterations to come, but looking forward, it won't be just Neera. We have a full future vision for a smart seaweed farm, much like Apple's smart home where everything kind of plugs and plays and just works. That's the long-term vision. We'll have Samudra farm with cameras, with Neera, with a camera system, with a mobile camera system we're looking at in the future called Knockout. Check with us in 6 months. And then looking at further things like seeding, harvesting, and then bringing in satellite information, UV, drone technology, lots of stuff to come.
So that's the grand vision. And in one small step in favor of the grand vision is actually a big step for us. So this is our first big step. We've actually just gone live with our first joint venture with Norfolk Seaweeds. We've done a 50-50 revenue partnership and ownership of their farms for the next 10 years. What that basically means is they are going to operate the farm and we are going to provide the tech and the data know-how and we are going to scale it together. If this works out for their farm, we have 5 other farms in pipeline in rest of UK that have queued up to do the similar joint ventures. And we ourselves together, Norfolk Seaweeds and us, will also continue to make more joint ventures. So that's just the plan for UK alone. By the way, I should tell you a little bit about Willie Athill, who is our joint venture partner here. He's been a banker for 35 years in London, New York, and Mumbai. And in a couple of years ago, he recognized he wants to go back home to Norfolk and continues to want to heal the planet, given his exposure to oil and gas before. And so that's why we partnered up. We decided to get together because he understood the problem and the solution. And we are very excited that this has happened within like 5 months of actually having formed a company. We are looking at a mix of revenue from biomass sales and carbon credit sales. By carbon credit sales, we mean blue carbon credit, and I will be discussing that shortly, how we're going about it. We haven't yet figured out the mix, what exactly will happen between those two, how are we going to distribute that. We hope to figure that out. At this point, it's entirely biomass sales, but in 12 months' time, we will start to kick in blue carbon credits. We've been in talk with the frontier funds of the world, like the Shopify Stripes and people who buy pre-corks. We are trying to register ourselves on Vera and Pure Earth, selling pre-certified carbon credits. It's a long process, but we're trying to get there. So there will be a mix of both, but how we're going to figure that out, don't know. We will figure that out, hopefully. So how exactly is the blue carbon credit going to work? On that direction, our project plan is slightly different than the biomass sales. So in UK alone, you're going to do the seedlings around like September, October. By I say you, I mean us. We are farmers now, and then we're going to harvest around April. So we don't have any propellers in our devices, if you've noticed, because that would be early harvesting. So they kind of move without propellers. So we're going to harvest around April. And then what happens to the mass that we've harvested? We, at this point, are starting to partner up with biochar producers. They're going to take it, and they're going to convert it into biochar, and we will share the carbon credits amongst ourselves, or we might even potentially pay them a little bit. So that's the plan for the blue carbon credit side of things. At the moment, the blue carbon credits go anywhere from $1,400 a ton to $600 a ton, depends on who you're talking to, what's the co-benefit. I think in 5 years' time, the entire world expects that to stabilize around $100 a ton. So we need a unit of economics to get there, which I think is perfect for robotics. So what's the team behind it? A super ambitious team. None of us have ever done seaweed. And we somehow think we're going to solve this. So that's the ambitious part of it. But what's interesting about us, we've done other things and we've done hard things. I'm Joyeeta. I and Alex, we are both engineers. We are both hardware engineers. I've been a software engineer for a while, worked in the Valley, at the top 3 tech companies of the world, built a couple of companies, failed at one of them, succeeded at a few, have also been a VC, and I'm wholeheartedly committed to the climate journey. Alex is an award-winning design engineer. He studied at UPenn and Imperial College and Royal College of Arts, and he also has worked in multiple prototype designs for the ocean alone. Deepak has been my repeat CEO for 3 startups so far, always been successful with me. We've exited multiple times, so hopefully we'll do it again. Hamish is a seaweed enthusiast and also an investor, and he's probably the only one amongst us who actually knows how seaweed farms work. So that's an honest truth. We've done hard things, we haven't done seaweed before, so we hope to figure it out with all of your support. We are backed by a team of titans. Honestly, this for me is the best part of our company that I personally love. There's so much we learn from them every single day. It's insane. Alec Watt is an ocean farmer, the first pioneering ocean farmer in UK. Dr. John Barry Gallagher, Google him up, the foremost authority in seaweed carbon accounting in the world. Like he's the advisor to Bezos and Gates Foundation for blue carbon credits. Alex and Hagen Bailey, both people who've actually exited billion-dollar hardware companies. Hagen Bailey is in Oxford, and if you've heard of Oxford Nanopore, that was his IPO. He was the only co-founder there. Barry Carter, the tech partner at KPMG, part of every big tech IPO you can think of in the last 35 years. And Martin Summer from DeepMind. Again, I highly encourage you to Google him up. So the titans that we have here really make what is possible. What we've done in 6 months is because of these people. And that's why we got into Air Miners, which is a San Francisco-based accelerator. We just graduated there yesterday and did a pitch. And hopefully we are closing a round probably entirely from the US because of yesterday's pitch. We've also received the Greenhouse Grant, which some of our peers have also done here. That's provided by Imperial College and the European Commission. And thank you very much to Carbon 13 for giving us their investment. And this is the rest of the networks that we've managed to tap into or formed informal partnerships in various ways. We have a not-so-secret world domination plan because we've already shared it with you twice in last 2 pitches. But we think that if we can handle blue carbon solution smart farm for seaweed alone, as the world moves more and more to sea farming, because obviously we're having more and more trouble with agriculture and soil, maybe we will be positioned to be the John Deere of the ocean economy, but more sustainable and data-driven from the beginning. That's a really old computer, but you get the point. So we've nearly closed it at this point. At the point I made the slide, this was true, but I think we are almost done with commitments. We have very little bit left here. This is kind of all closed, more or less, with a little bit left. And thank you very much. This is a complete emotional manipulation slide. It has very little relevance to what we do. It's just a very cute otter that is wrapped in seaweed, which all otter moms do to their babies when they go hunting. So it's like a cat video. You know I'm manipulating you, but you love it. So that's us. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Super interesting. And I think this is a really difficult space, everybody recognize. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. And when it comes to the challenge, I've seen in the past few years, there are algae technology companies, seaweed technology companies, all this type of companies trying to scale. And the problem is not just an engineering problem, technology problem, it's also a farming agriculture problem. So how do you see yourself together with the team trying to bring all these kind of skill sets together to solve almost kind of like a multi-facet challenge as you scale up your technology and business?
No, you're absolutely right. It's a multi-institutional, multi-pillar challenge, which we also think when salt is our moat, that probably will be hard for others to scale. And so we've actually separated it out strategically on how we're approaching it. So we're not doing CapEx heavy, large floating platforms doing wild harvesting. That's not our space because we think it's very long to get a license, lots of funds to be raised very upfront. It's a completely different ballgame, and we're not sure how that will scale in UK or EU. So we're going with this model, which is more about us producing modular devices that are very easy for a single person to deploy, actually requires almost nothing. And psychologically, the farmers have been far more open with this tiny thing, with like an umbilical cord and a data buoy, than like a large floating platform. And also we found that the permits for those are really hard to get, can take up to 2-3 years. So far, the 6-7 farms that have partnered up with us, it hasn't been that hard because they have a real problem. No one wants to go out into the cold 3 times a day on a boat alone, nobody. So if you can take that away, they were like, hell yeah, I will take that. I think the question is a bit more about commercialization of the business model at this point, rather than like we've cracked this bit of the institutional side. The business model, well, we don't want to be entirely a hardware company. It's not a commoditization game and a race to the bottom. We are positioning ourselves more as a company that is providing also knowledge and AI services off of the back of the hardware. So you feel you're a bit more like Nest than Fitbit, if that makes sense. But this is all in a very novel space, like marine farming being democratized for everyone. So could it all blow up? Are we entirely wrong? It's highly possible, but we're trying.
But there's a big opportunity to chase. Yeah. And in terms of the hardware, just to drill down to it, it's super interesting to actually see this in reality. So just to clarify, this is the actual product. It's not a prototype.
So it is a prototype, but like prototypes are our products right now because we don't have mass manufacture yet. So at this point, we build this entirely in our workshop. By we, I mean Alex makes it and I make mistakes because I didn't use my training very well. He did. So he's soldering and putting sensors together. I'm pulling a wire and destroying it. But we make it ourselves in our own workshop. So we're not yet at a point where prototypes are truly commercial. We've outsourced to a factory. We can't do that yet. But hopefully at some point the prototype and the product will mean different things. Right now they're the same thing.
How about the components within it? Any kind of critical pieces that you have to ship from a specific Amsterdam lab or anything like that?
Sensors are challenging, shall we say. I mean, the ocean monitoring space historically, and still is today, primarily science-based. So looking for something that's both reasonably priced as well as not insanely accurate has been a real challenge for us. I think nitrates especially, super important nutrient to monitor for seaweed farms. We're still looking for a supplier that's kind of
The last
retail
one
price
put at
performance one.
35K. I just kind of laughed at his face. I was like, oh, that's funny.
And particularly at this point in time, in terms of the global supply chain.
I mean, for us,
Yes,
price
yes.
point is important. The moment it goes too much, we have stopped democratizing it for the farmer, and that kind of kills the proposition. So one novel way we are trying to challenge it is the few good suppliers we've noticed across the world. Quite a lot of them in China as well, and Ukraine. There's a bit in south of France, but mostly in Asia. We have actually been communicating with them, given our climate thesis. Can we align on some common carbon credits, ESG mandates, something, so they can provide us a subsidized cost, even though we're not producing in large volumes? Haven't been entirely successful, haven't been entirely unsuccessful. I think we have managed to get quite a few things at quite a discounted price, and we would probably do that another 2 years. But it would be interesting to find a way to democratize all of it without paying a lot, and we haven't found a way, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's always a journey, right? And when it comes to that GV, it's quite exciting to hear that you already have a GV in place within such a short period of time after you funding the business. In terms of GV, how you're going to protect your IP? But sometimes, especially at the early stage, if you're scaling with a partner, how you protect your IP? Any thoughts around that?
Well, definitely there's no foolproof response. Yes, I mean, we are filing a bunch of patents around our design, but that doesn't stop if something has to happen, if you know what I mean. So yes, that's a risk, but how we are protecting is by the structure of the JV. First of all, us and the partner together own this new entity. So if we fail because someone else copied our IP and made it, he's also going to fail. So we're together in this. And we are also trying to get to a structure of equity where they get a little bit of a seat at the table, even in the company. This is not a very classic VC-funded business model, and we are okay with that. We don't think that's the only way to grow the unique business we're doing. It may not be the only way. So we have a bunch of VCs on board right now, but in future we might do different forms of financing. We might look at each JV being funded differently by an SPV. It may not be a very standard VC model of funding because of this IP protections and things like that, where things may get hairy. At the moment, there's no foolproof response. The only thing we'll say is we've tried to create the structure of the JV legally in such a way that they're incentivized to grow with us. Could it still go wrong? Probably, yeah.
Clearly, you got experience.
Not to do this.
Not to do this, but to mitigate the risk.
Yeah, well, hopefully.
One last final question, really quickly. For the investors in front of the camera, I guess, for them, you still have, I guess, a small allocation of the capital available for investors.
Yeah.
Who can win that? What's your ideal profile of that particular that particular investor?
So we want people who can truly add value. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to have industry contracts and contacts and introductions. Maybe because we have a few good VCs now who are doing that for us already. What we really mean by value add is, are they willing to, even if we catch up only once a month, are they really willing to bring something to the table? Okay, I will talk to your problems, or I will look at your OKRs, or if something goes wrong with hiring, talk to me, I know what to do. They're really interested in adding that value. We don't want very passive money at this moment because we think we need loads of help. It's a titanic size of task and there's a tiny team. So if they can actually help in some way, we would love that. But at the very least, if they say, hey, we love the otters and we love you, then that's fine too. Yeah.
Really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.